Okay. Can everybody hear me okay? Yes? No? No. Can you hear me now? Testing. Didn't do a mic check before this. Okay. Everybody good? Can you hear me in the back? Fantastic. Okay. Good morning, everybody. Welcome. Thank you for being here today. My name is Nida Ansari. I'm the founder of Karmic Impact. I'm here with my fellow panelists. I know your agenda had Amy Brown from Authentics on the panel. She unfortunately couldn't make it today, so it'll be the three of us. We've got a whole host of questions to ask each other. We're going to do more of a fireside chat than just a moderator panel kind of scenario. So, but one more pivot is that I see a lot of familiar faces in the room. So I'm probably going to start pointing for questions at some point. So if you have something you're dying to ask, please do. We would love it, actually. There's only so much I can come up with, or any of us can come up with, and our points of view are our points of view. But if you have questions for us, feel free to ask. Quick show of hands, though. I know some of the other panels have done this. I would love a show of hands of who's come here from outside the US. Okay, outside the Midwest. Okay, so mostly Midwest, but a few folks from elsewhere, which is cool. Let's start with a few intros. I'll let Justin and Kent go first, and we'll go from there. Thank you for having us.
Hey, everybody. I'm Justin Brown. I'm the managing director of Endeavor Midwest and the managing partner of Bespoke Production Capital. And I will just say one thing real quick. For all of you guys that are not from the U.S. that are here, we're really happy to have you here, and thank you all for coming. So Endeavor is a global organization that serves entrepreneurs. If you are looking to grow your business a little faster, a little bigger, a little more efficiently, if you're looking for help to do that, you're looking for a network of people who can show you the way. If you're looking for a little bit more access to talent, to customers, to capital, to all the things that it takes to grow a business, that's what we're here to do, is we're here to provide the access to those things. And I think we do a pretty good job of it. We've got 5 offices here in the U.S. Proud to say Kent is one of our entrepreneurs. And then additionally, I run a private credit fund where we work with a lot of film and content entrepreneurs doing debt financing as well as other lower middle market businesses. So it's a little bit about me.
Thanks again for everybody for coming. It's a lot of travel time to get here, and it's an honor to be sitting with you all. And as they both said, I think we'll get the most out of this if you guys ask questions. We want it to be interesting to you all more than what we might think would be interesting. I'm Kent Sissel, founder, entrepreneur, currently run a suite of companies. It's called Common Good Holdings. The companies are a collection of entities that focus in the renewable energy space. It's a construction company, software company, financial company. Brightwell is kind of our trademark company. What we do with Brightwell is we unlock generosity through matching people who are looking to do good for others with people who need energy independence, primarily through solar energy. So anyway, we are an Endeavor company. We're happy to be here. Excited to have this dialogue with you all.
A little bit about me. My name's Nida, like Nida Sweater. I have been here in Indiana since 2021, lived in a few places, grew up and spent a lot of time in the Middle East, moved here pretty much as an adult, and I've been primarily working in corporate innovation up until recently when I pivoted to open innovation and startup work. And in the last few years, actually, we've been designing programming that maximizes connections and community impact. So if you think of your humdrum networking sessions where there's the wine and the cheese and you're an entrepreneur that walks in, there's a lot of angst when you walk in as an entrepreneur. You're not on a level playing field. You're looking for something. So if you're an ecosystem builder, hopefully this espouses some empathy. So our programs generally are around community impact. So we'll set up meal packing stations. You'll walk up and walk up to a station, start packing meals, and get to know somebody over a common purpose. Several of you in the room have participated in my meal packs in the last few years, and we're actually expanding into other types of programs. So that leads into what the multiplier effect actually is. I'm going to do my best here, but Endeavor is probably best equipped to talk about it. But as you might imagine, it's an economic concept, right? But think about it like not 1 + 1 = 2, but 1 + 1 = 3, 5, 7, exponential. So when you put something out there, what are you going to be able to get back? And this ecosystem is fascinating. The entrepreneurial ecosystem is fascinating because it runs on karma. It's actually one of the reasons that my company is called Karmic. Because you put something out there, I might help, or any one of us might help a founder. We're not keeping score on whether or not that founder can pay us back tomorrow, next year, next 10 years. We're putting it out there, and at some point, something's going to come back to you. So this ecosystem thrives on karmic energy, and I think that's a lot. If you're going to come to the Brad Feld keynote this afternoon, that's a lot of what Techstars is built on, is give first. So we're going to talk a little bit about what the multiplier effect is. But when you think about the themes, I'm going to prime you all for questions too. Think about the themes like, how do you make time? How do you make time to give before you've even gotten? How do you not keep score? What does conscious capitalism look like? There are a lot of themes here that we're going to explore. So think about those, and I'm going to let Justin maybe do a better job on the multiplier effect.
That was pretty good, though. The multiplier effect at the end of the day is that if you go out and you build something, you are going to inspire others to do the same. You're going to show them the way to do it. You're going to show people what good looks like, what the pathway to building something looks like. You're probably going to hire a bunch of people that are going to grow with the company, and potentially might then spin off and start their own company. And you, hopefully, are going to create a lot of jobs, create a lot of impact within your community, and potentially and hopefully create a lot of wealth within your community for yourself as the entrepreneur, for your investors, for the people that worked with you. And then you're going to turn around and you're going to invest in those next people that are trying to do the same thing. And that's the multiplier effect. It takes one person who can do that can then build and create that ecosystem. And in a place like New York or San Francisco, there's a lot of people, there's a lot of roadmaps, there's a lot of people doing that. But if you're in Louisville, Kentucky, or Indianapolis, or you're in emerging markets, you're in Egypt, you're in Africa, you're in Southeast Asia, you're in places like that where there's not these robust networks of capital and talent and customers and all those things. You being that one person that shows people how to do it, you are the catalyst for all the people that follow on from that, right? And so it's this idea that you can build something great, but more importantly than building that one thing that's great, it's all of the things great that come out of that and after that. I had the privilege I worked as a real estate entrepreneur for a little while. I had some really smart people that took a chance on me. They invested in me, they backed me on a project, and I was able to make them a little bit of money, and now they go out and they back a bunch more young, smart entrepreneurs because they had a win. And I'm fortunate enough to be in a position where I get to, one, lead this amazing organization helping entrepreneurs, but I also have the ability to invest in other entrepreneurs that are doing that. And that's really the core of what it is. And I think, Kent, you've probably, when it comes to building something and then going on and doing other things, you're investing in other entrepreneurs right now. You've got some pretty cool things that you're doing with Brightwell.
Yeah, one of the things about the multiplier effect for me that's so interesting is it puts a vernacular around something that, can be pretty intimidating on both sides of the equation. If you're the receiver of someone asking, needing help, if you're the one that needs help, or you're the one that's providing help, you can get in the way of yourself a lot of times. There's a lot of entrepreneurs out there who want to help other people, or regardless if it's an entrepreneur, there's people willing to provide help. And there's a lot of people that could use really quick speed boosts from people, from experiences that are pretty hard to get. As I grew up, I was super fortunate to be surrounded with a lot of people who are willing to help me, but they also really reinforced for me the importance of helping others. And I think that was kind of baked into my character, and I have a lot, to owe there for my family for helping me figure that out. Took me a long time until I got late into my career, though, to realize that shame on me for not being more forward with being intentional about trying to help others. And one thing about the Multiplier Effect and really Endeavor that's really helped me a lot is their effort to really help people understand that, no, you have something special, right? And a lot of you who are here have something special, and you have other entrepreneurs in your networks that are doing things that can use your talent, your advice, your expertise to go make a difference. And some of the most satisfying things for me in my career are really not things that I've done in my own business. It's things that I've been able to take from my experiences with my business and go use those to help each other do something really cool. So the Multiplier Effect, to me, it most simply is using what you've been given, blessed with, done, the experience you've had to quickly help someone else get that next level of advancement much quicker than they otherwise could go get it, whether that's capital, problem solving, business advice, networking, so on and so forth.
Yeah, I'll just add. The great thing about the Multiplier Effect is you don't have to it's not about like, I'm starting something and now I've got to go start immediately giving. When you're starting something, when you're building your company or your organization or whatever it is, whatever part, when you're in that foundational part of the journey, I'll be perfectly candid, your number one job is to be selfish. You should ask for help. You should find people who have done this before. Ask them for help. Ask them for what work. Ask them for access to capital. Who should they talk to from a talent perspective? Be selfish. Because the most powerful thing that you can do is build whatever it is that you're building. And once you've done that, very naturally, you're going to find yourself having people coming to you that looked like you a few years ago that are going to be asking for help. And you're now going to be in that position to help them, to give them the same intro to someone, or to point them out to somebody who might invest in them, or to give them hey, I had this problem, here's how we solved it. And that's, I think, the really cool thing about the journey of building a company or an organization. And I think that's the cool part about the Multiplier Effect, the karmic effect, maybe.
Yeah. So one other quick poll here. How many of y'all are founders? Okay. And I guess I saw a couple recovering founders raise their hands too, but how many of y'all are entrepreneurial service organizations or ecosystem builders? Okay. Pretty good mix. Okay. So after this question, I'm going to look at y'all for questions, just so you know. Okay. So now that we know that there's ecosystem builders and ESOs in the room, and we talked about leveraging resources, the cards that you're dealt, the spaces that you're in, maximizing the opportunities that you've been given, what kinds of opportunities have you faced or come across or taken advantage of that have been, call them manufactured or like fortuitously set up by an ESO that you've taken advantage of? So I'm thinking mentorship networks, I'm thinking programming, but is there anything unusual in the mix that you've been able to take advantage of? I'm looking at Kent primarily, but yeah.
Yeah, I'll go first. One organization that's pretty cool, I got the socks on right now, that I really like is the Started Up Foundation, which is in this state, there's a group of essentially young budding entrepreneurs, kids that are really smart with really cool business ideas that are doing, incubator style pitch competitions. And so they pull in entrepreneurs from around the state to help those really smart kids with their ideas. And so me being able to contribute on that side has been fun. But backing up, I've been very fortunate to be in a lot of ecosystems that have helped me to develop. Coming out of college, I went to Indiana University. I started my career with Ford. Ford provided one of the best platforms for me as an entrepreneur, where they had this program called the Ford College Graduate Approach. And when I saw that, like, what is that? I don't know. But what they did is they paired graduating college students with the best and brightest people in that company for 6 months at a time and gave me the opportunity. Like, straight out of college, I ran a $160 million budget project. And then I implemented a giant technology solution for all of their order fulfillment projects. And you can either get into that, go through the motions, or you can take everything that you can get from it and use it for your next intention. That was a great ecosystem that I used. I found out there that the best and brightest people in those companies were the ones who wanted to do the best. It was like a natural inherent drive. That stuck with me into my next jump. I then landed in corporate America at a Fortune 500, and I was running a $2 million top-line budget. And I jumped into a world of how do I make this interesting? I was in fintech, payment processing, payroll, point of sale. At its best, moderately interesting business, right? So I wanted it to be more fun. And we just said, okay, let's go rebrand internally. What do we do? And we came up with the slogan, our culture we were creating was entrepreneurs respectfully serving entrepreneurs. And that's how we hired, that's how we built, that's how we fostered our ecosystem. So we had 6,000 people who were working in corporate America together as a part of this business that were trying to act like entrepreneurs, as best as you could with a corporate America budget, right? But that ecosystem allowed me to be challenged in corporate America in a way that I otherwise couldn't be challenged. Clearly, bumping out of that into now running my own business and investing in other people's companies, it's a whole new world when you're out on your own. And that was new to me, right? I felt alone as an entrepreneur. I felt annoying as an entrepreneur, like I'm going to go bother other people when I ask them with my questions, having been, given the luxury of working with a $2 billion recurring revenue budget. Like, buddy, shouldn't you have probably already figured this thing out by now? But I didn't. There was a lot I didn't know. And until I honestly encountered Endeavor, which is a group of like-minded people around the world of businesses of all different types and flavors that are welcoming that input, it was really hard for me to find a comfort zone. Even before I became an Endeavor company, that ecosystem welcomed me. They provided unsolicited advice and experience, and I just found it as an organization that I could go to get advice, give advice, and there was never a measure of success. So I think when you're looking at those platforms, you asked a big question, like what have I found to be successful? I think the thing that I look for is when you're not looking to get something out of it, and when you don't expect to get something in return, but you're there, to your point, the karmic experience is a good way to phrase it. You're there understanding that if I do good, hopefully somehow, some way, something good will be provided in return.
Yeah, I think, Kent, you and I have something in common in that earlier in my career, I worked in corporate as well. I didn't have entrepreneurship as part of the lingo or entrepreneurial behavior as part of the lingo, but we got told often to just figure it out. So I worked many years ago for a Fortune 200 company called WestRock, which is primarily packaging. Probably just as exciting as financial payments or global finance, but packaging, right? So think triggers, like if you've ever worked with a Febreze or sprayed Febreze as an aerosol, the top piece was mine. It was a lot of fun. A lot of fun. And at another point in my career, fun fact, so corporate innovation through and through, right? I worked for Koch Industries. One of their companies is called Invista, which does airbag fiber. We have 80% of, or they have 80% of the airbag fiber market. Fascinating stuff. And then at some point worked with Georgia Pacific that does Quilted Northern. So while at Quilted Northern, I was the senior director of toileting innovation. So entrepreneurialism did not come into my purview as much, but it was absolutely part and parcel of what I was working on, right? Having to figure it out, having to do the focus groups on toilet paper. We'll talk about it when I step off stage. But having to figure it out in the safety of corporate feels a lot different than what I'm trying, or any of us are trying to do now. You'll always have a paycheck. The company will likely be around. There's a lot of things that feel a lot safer. And quite frankly, if that piece or that project doesn't work out, they'll pull you into operations or marketing or product management or something, right? So it's a safe place to try out being an entrepreneur, to be totally honest. Justin, do you have anything before I?
Anybody from JP Morgan in the room? Just real quick.
Okay.
No. Okay. Good.
Safe crowd.
Yeah. So I also started in finance. I was an investment banker with JP Morgan, which for 3% of the time is the most interesting job in the world, and for the other 97% of the time is, excuse my language, the most miserable fucking job in the entire world. But you do learn. You learn expertise, professionalism, execution, and at the end of the day, that execution and that expertise are the things that are going to make you a good entrepreneur more than anything else. Because at some point, as I'm sure all of you all know, it is going to come down to you being willing to put the time in to execute on something that's real hard and that no one else wants to do or even thinks is possible. So whatever that foundation is that you have that gives you that expertise and that execution, go find that, go do that, and I hope all of you all have that. When I ran a real estate development group for a little while, and I was doing that on my own. I didn't have a lot of help. I didn't have mentors. I didn't have an ecosystem to help me out. And candidly, I think we probably didn't build that company as well as we could have. Learned a whole lot of lessons, learned them the hard way. I took this job with Endeavor because I desperately, desperately wish I had known about Endeavor while I was running that company. And so for any of you all out there, whether it is Endeavor, and we focus on companies that are scaling up, so companies that are kind of past that $2 to $3 million revenue mark, if that's where you are in your journey and are looking to go big, we love to talk with you. And if you're not quite there, there's other organizations that will help you. But I do encourage you all, find an organization, a group of people that fits with what you're trying to do. It is so worth it, and it absolutely will shortcut a lot of those learning things that we all have to go through.
Okay, audience participation time. Anybody got question? Question? Alicia? Just happen to know Alicia.
Hi there. Alicia McCoy, Peak Mind, empowering users to thrive with mental well-being. So you guys are fantastic and have had access into the multiplier effect. What do you think it's going to take to get others to do the good work that you guys have done, specifically around capital for maybe people that don't look the same as you guys do? Just especially because of the stats just stay that, we're a little bit more, it's harder for us.
That's a great question. I honestly wish I had a perfect answer to that, and I don't. What I will say, though, is I think for organizations like ours, we are acutely aware of the problem. And the best thing that we can try to do, one, is show up and tell people about who we are and what we do and how we can help. And two is try to find people who are doing really meaningful stuff who don't look like me, right? Who look like you, who look like the people in this room. At the end of the day, you want to be a peer network has to be a network of peers. And while at the end of the day, shared experiences are a key part of that peer network, sometimes you want to find somebody who has a shared background as you, or maybe has the same language as you if English isn't the first language, because it turns out it's really, really hard to do things the entire time in a second language, and I commend anyone who's doing that. It's not something I've had to do. We have a really cool entrepreneur right now who just had an exit, and she was trying to build a company while also being a mom. And while I can talk to her a little bit about building a company, I cannot talk to her about being a mom. And she needs people who she can talk to about being a mom and building a company. And so it's something we are actively trying to do. And I will tell you that the ones who do it the right way, they both are making an impact, but they're also pretty profitable, right? There's the story about Dry Bar. I don't know how many of you guys know about Dry Bar here in the United States, but it's a place that you can go and women get their hair done. And it's not a haircut, you just get it fixed. My wife loves the place, I will say. But that woman who founded that company went to like 1,000 private equity companies, and they all passed. And the reason that they passed was pretty simple. It was a bunch of dudes that were reviewing the company, and they didn't see the business model. And that company is worth a lot of billions of dollars right now. And so there's the impact component and there's the responsibility component, which we have to hit. But at the end of the day, there's a profitability component here. You are missing a massive swath of potential investment return if you don't have people that don't look like you and who understand opportunities that you might be missing, but can point out and say, here's why this is good. We got to do a better job at that. The people that do it, they're going to be successful, and they're going to cause a lot of impact. And we are trying, I might add.
And I happen to know Alicia, so I think she's doing, if you haven't heard it today, you're doing all the things, right? You just have to keep doing it.
Are you a founder or are you okay.
I'm going to lean here and then over here for a question. Front row.
Good morning, and thank you. My name is Belinda. I'm the relatively new president of an organization called the National Entrepreneur Center. We house 19 different business support organizations like the Small Business Development Center and different chambers of commerce, et cetera. My question to each of you would be, have you ever, as you were getting started, did you ever leverage any of the free resources like an SBDC as you were getting started or at any point? And if you have you, going back to your karma, what have you done to give back to those organizations that may not necessarily need funding because they may get funding from governments, but other than being a success story, how would you give back to organizations like that?
Where are you based?
In Orlando.
Orlando. Okay. I'd say from my end, I've mentored for several accelerators. Generators, G-Beta programs are pretty prolific here in Indianapolis. Techstars, specifically the program out of Detroit that's sponsored by JP Morgan. But it specifically helps underrepresented, or they target underrepresented Black and Brown founders. So that's near and dear to my heart. So I've mentored for them, and I'm sure these other folks have examples as well. But I'd say this: that one of the things that I'm trying to put together is a program where entrepreneurs come together to talk about the things that we don't always talk about in spaces like that. When you're getting mentored through an accelerator, we're talking about fundraising, we're talking about team building, we're talking about board building, advisory, product, team, all of that stuff. What we're not talking about is how lonely it is, how stressful it is, what I might find in... So that stuff needs to be talked about just as much. Mental health issues. So I have a program where we get together as a group to talk about things like that. A couple months ago, we talked about Women's History Month. Alicia was actually one of the speakers talking about stress during Stress Awareness Month, where we sit around and talk about what our common strategies are as founders when it comes to all of these things. So Stress Awareness Month, I'm actually particularly proud of. It's a nationally recognized month here in the United States, but the conversation was intended to be small. We cap it around 20, 25 people, and we sit in a living room style environment and talk about what it's like to be a founder and how stress actually manifests itself through the journey in us physically, with our families, mentally, all of those things. And while the program's not free, one of the components of the entry fee, it's $25 to come, right? But one of the components of the entry fee is to bring a few cans of food. And then the food goes to a local food pantry. Depending on the theme of the month, we'll pick the food pantry accordingly. In the fall, we'll do something similar with regard to winter clothing. So Indiana happens to have a really high immigrant refugee population. I'm also on the board of the Immigrant Welcome Center. So speaking of volunteering time, working with immigrant founders is another big passion of mine. But that's kind of how I'm hoping to give back through whatever I'm building.
I'll jump in a little bit. I mean, it's a big question because there's so many ways you can interface. Yes, in short, yes. Did we use those resources? Over time, I've used them in a bunch of different ways. Training, development of new talent, getting the word out in markets where we might not be present, so on and so forth. How I try to give back is in two ways. Number one, there's philanthropy, whether it's me giving my time or me giving my money. Try to be intentional. Obviously, as an entrepreneur, budgets ebb and flow, right? And then giving my time, right? And time is also precious as an entrepreneur. But I think in the communities that are stewarding your success, particularly our local community, actually some of the one Southern Indiana guys are here, they've been great for us. So I host events. I fund events at other people's sites. I do trainings for them. And they're not asking me to do that necessarily. I'm saying, how can I help raise awareness, build expertise? The second is using the programs that are offered. I think awareness of what is going on. Some of the best training and development programs that exist come up through programs like this. In one of my prior lives, I hired like 400 software developers. and there were regional community-based technology development programs. Full circle, I started an internship program with one of the local communities and hired their very first intern for me about 20 years ago. He now is my head of technology at my current company, is the smartest tech person that I know in the world, right? And so through one of those programs, I got one of my most valuable resources to help build and grow my career and our company with. So I think the best way from my seat that you can support organizations like your all's are to use the programs that are there, because the more that we interface with you all to build and develop on those things that are there, the more support you'll get from other people other than us as entrepreneurs. The entrepreneurs taking advantage of it, build your case for getting support from people outside of the entrepreneur community.
I think one of the things that Kent talked about that we're all passionate about is if you did what Kent did for the last 20 years, if each one of us in the room did that, that's what the multiplier effect would mean, right? It would be the best demonstration of that. You individually might have examples like Kent just named, but if we collectively did that, it would mean amazing things for the Midwest ecosystem, for international ecosystems that we're from, or from the coastal parts of this country. So I think I saw another hand, front row. And we have, by way of time check, I think 10 minutes. The clock here is not on. 10 minutes? Yeah, okay.
So this message is mainly for Justin. As I listen to ecosystem builders, and then just kind of in Wichita, Kansas, they take on entrepreneurs that don't even have an LLC to people who are making, let's say, $10,000 a month. And that's very broad. Do you believe, because you said that the businesses you work with have to make a certain amount of money. Do you believe by being specific that way you're able to actually make a greater impact versus being very broad? That's what I thought. Okay.
I will say, though, that a question back to you might be, are they doing that because there's not enough density in the ecosystem? Because I know that in parts of the country where there's not that many entrepreneurs to begin with, you might see a couple entrepreneurs at every stage, but running an entire program for a couple entrepreneurs the delta is just tremendous. I mean, it's just a lot easier to just kind of swoop them all in. Sometimes it's metric driven. There's a lot of incentives. So I agree with Justin. My question is it because is there not that much?
I believe that the density, yes, but if you continue, or if I was to continue to think that way, would I still be in the same issue versus splitting it up anyway and trying it out to see if it would work if you did devote the time to 2 people versus 20 people on a spectrum, and you only impact 2 people versus 2 people all in the same, I guess, structure, and then both of them going on to growing.
Yeah, I think about incentives a lot in that case. Are the organizations that are setting that up incentivized for numbers and volume versus metrics like Series A raised, or this many employees helped, or whatever? Because incentives tend to be misaligned in places like that too. So.
Yeah, we do a thing very well, which is we help companies grow and scale faster. And so there's a specific set of problems that we're trying to help people solve, that our network's trying to help people solve, and more importantly, that we're set up to solve. There's a lot of, and so what we want to do is we want to focus in on our area where we can be really good, and then we want to work with people who are solving other parts of the problem, right? There are groups that obviously, when you're much bigger than us, that there's other people. And when you're just starting out, right, that sort of like idea to your first, $1 million, let's say, or whatever it is, that's a whole different set of problems that you're going through and that you're trying to solve, and that you probably want to be surrounded by, than say when you're 10 to 15 million and you're trying to grow to 100 to 150 million. It's just it just looks a little different. And so our job, what we want to do is we want to help those organizations work with them that are working with folks that are below us in revenue. Excuse me, apologize for my wording there. We're earlier in the journey than some of our companies. But the other thing we want to do is we want to make sure that we're saying, hey, come talk to our folks. We'll try to provide resources. And a lot of what we do too is we try to evangelize. We say, here's what you can do. Here's what good looks like. Here's a whole bunch of people who have done this same thing. And here was their playbook. Follow it. And then, oh, by the way, once you get to this point where the next set of challenges happen, there's a whole new group of people ready to put their arms around you.
Is that okay? Hi, I'm Blossom. I'm from Startup Wyoming, and we're a relatively new organization that just launched in September of last year. We're in the process of figuring out our statewide impact metrics so that we can establish a baseline. The issue for us, though, is that Wyoming has no income tax. It has no corporate tax. So trying to figure out how to move the needle on the state economy, minus those things, is challenging. So we're looking at other things like the multiplier effect. And so I wanted to ask, is there a way to quantify the multiplier effect, for communities and states? Is there a formula that we can follow in order to work that into our overall impact reports?
So this is a big, interesting question, and we do business, in a lot of different markets that have all different types of incentives, to your point. And so we really struggle with this. I think a couple metrics that I've found that are interesting is what benefit have you provided to the business community? And I don't know how you measure that success, but attaching that to revenue growth or expense savings somehow through your efforts, right? We've been able to grow revenue of small businesses in the market by doing this. I think the other one that's an easy, I'm sure you're thinking about, is job creation. When I set sail as an entrepreneur, my primary driver leaving corporate America was I wanted to create jobs that people loved, right? The baseline of respect was a big deal to me. I had no idea what I was going to do. I just knew that I wanted to create jobs. And I think if you go into pretty much any area, how that has a direct correlation to the state making money, I don't know. But there's people in the state that can work and have gainful and winsome employment and be happy residents earning an income and self-sustaining, right? That metric to me is probably the most important one that I'd be thinking about if I was you guys.
And if you have status quo right now is maybe lacking data in that phase of development. What I found to be really helpful from a state or entrepreneur service organization is a lot of case studies and storytelling, building out your book of here's who we've helped and how we've helped them, because your measures of success are a lot more qualitative right now than quantitative. So the storytelling is going to be really, really important. One somewhat selfish book of work that I would point to from the state of Indiana is the Entrepreneurship Yearbook. I believe the IEDC has been publishing it since 2021, 22 maybe, so we've done 3 or 4 years of it. And every year it's showcasing entrepreneurs from all over the state, different stages, different walks of life. It's industry agnostic. And it just is it's a great body of work that's published every year. They start out with metrics and all of that stuff, but being able to let entrepreneurs tell their own stories on what they've developed and been working on and their blood, sweat, and tears that has gone into this effort is a really cool opportunity on the qualitative side that I think is really, really important.
Number of new investors. Thank you. Number of net new investors. Number of net new businesses that scale beyond 5 million in revenue, because 5 million in revenue is the mark where there tends to be density of talent and wealth building and things like that. So those are 2 really good metrics you can use.
And another resource that I might point to is a company named EcoMap that'll help you map an ecosystem. And Indiana also leveraged the Startup Genome organization to help map out and benchmark Indiana against other very similarly positioned cities all over the world. So if that's an effort from a benchmarking perspective that's helpful, both of those resources, and they're both here actually today. So EcoMap's out here. Question?
We can go next to each other.
Oh, no, I was going to do
Oh, okay, thank you. My question is for Kent. You said that you felt annoying when you were first starting out. What questions did you find yourself asking the most? And besides knowing about Endeavor, is there anything you would have changed about your personal journey starting out?
It's a great question. Annoyed is a big word. I probably was embarrassed is the biggest word, right? I found myself with a lot of things that I felt like I should know the answers to, but I don't. I think the biggest ones are things that I could only relate to other entrepreneurs with was, why do I feel this way? And it was more the psychological side of being an entrepreneur. Why am I so stressed? Why do I sit at home at night and not sleep because of this? Why do I feel like if I disappear, my company's going to fold? And the things that you only think about when you truly are an entrepreneur. The only way that I found to find that success is to find a community of people who I could ask those questions to and not sound like an egomaniac or not sound selfish, right? Like, that's a big question to ask. Why can't I sleep at night? Why do I care why you can't sleep at night, man? That's what's going through my head, right? But when you ask someone who has gone through something similar or is going through something similar, that's really helpful for me. Of course, there were the more tactical decisions. You know, again, I'm blessed. I'm a fourth generation entrepreneur, so I had family members I could go to ask about how to grow a business, how to build a culture, and some of that stuff came along naturally. I also ran a big budget, right? But things in the new space that I was entering into as a company, rather than me figuring out the answers on Google or, you know, AI or whatever, right? Like, let's go ask the people who are experts because they're probably willing to give you a help. And so really now, as I've continued to mature, I've just really learned that short circuit. Like, if you find yourself stuck, why? It's probably because you don't have a community of people who can help you. If you're stuck and you at least don't try to find that answer through someone who you think knows it, you're doing yourself and your company, if you're an entrepreneur, a disservice because your time as a leader is being tied up problem solving instead of going and finding the answer to that problem.
Worst mistake I made, not asking a question. Best decisions I made, asking the questions of someone.
I think as female entrepreneurs, you want to make sure you're in a space where that question can be asked. I think I've heard from quite a few female entrepreneurs that the imposter syndrome is pretty heavy when you go into spaces like that where folks may not look like you, dress like you, all the things, and whatever boxes of your identity that you check off, you walk into a room looking for those mirrors, right? And if not found, those conversations are really hard to have. And if you're already an entrepreneur that's starting from zero, the imposter syndrome combined with all of that is tough to overcome, but it's very much a mental exercise.
And if you're here wanting to multiply others, right, which probably a lot of you are, wanting to provide your benefit, that's where I've seen the door in my career be open the most to people being vulnerable, asking for my help, which gives me more satisfaction than receiving help. And when you go to someone and ask them, like, hey, person, I need you for this, they're much more likely to tell you the same thing in return, which can provide you that level of satisfaction. Some of my most deepest and most meaningful entrepreneur to entrepreneur relationships that I have came because I went to them and said, I'm screwed up, help me, you know?
Yeah, and when I say safe space, they're one of the things that we don't do well in the Midwest is provide feedback that's truly honest. And what that means is, you kind of say,
come see me.
But there's, for those of us that are entrepreneur service organizations, you've heard me beat this drum quite a bit. Like, we should be able to give each other honest feedback without tearing each other down. So if you think that somebody is going to hit a wall soon because you've experienced it, telling them, that's a cool idea. It's really cool that you're building that. Would love to see that in 6 months. It's not helpful to the other person if you're not giving them the signal that it is really cool what you're building. Think about this before you hit this wall, because I've done it before. That's a much kinder approach. Politeness is not the same as kindness, right? It's a much kinder approach, but it's also one that breaks the barrier of relationship building much faster than you would think.
Yeah, I'll throw it out there real quick. I think imposter syndrome, obviously I'm saying this coming from one perspective and background. With that said, imposter syndrome is something I know that I suffer from all the time, if not on a daily basis, right? I think we all do. And so what I would just say is if you're thinking about, if you're worried about that, one, don't be, because chances are the person that you're talking to suffers the same thing. And two, I think as Ken and Nita both mentioned, if you come and you ask a question and it sounds like you know everything, one, I know that's probably not true, and smart people are going to know that. And two, you're turned off. You don't want to help somebody who doesn't want to be helped. But when people come and they're vulnerable, they say, I don't understand this. I'm worried about this. Like, I think for good people, I'm not going to say everyone, but for good people, and that's regardless of what you look like or anything else, I think that vulnerability, man, those are the moments where the good stuff happens, because that's when you know it's real. They're serious. If you're willing to tell somebody that the words I don't know, I need help. This is a real question. It takes guts to do that, and I think good people, smart people recognize that, and they will respond to that. And again, going back to what you earlier, the worst mistakes I've made in my life were not asking those questions and not being vulnerable. And I desperately wish I had. It's part of the reason I'm in the job I am today, is because I want to help people with that. The best decisions I made are when I was vulnerable and I asked those questions.
Okay, I'm getting big X's from over there telling me that our time's up. We appreciate you so much for coming out and being engaged. Thank you for the questions. We really appreciate the authenticity in the room here today. We're around today for a little bit at least, so if you would like to ask any of us questions, please feel free to come by. Thank you.